by listening to Alan Shermanton and his great transformational presentation, which he delivered over the week. But just briefly, briefly in a minute for all of you, I've heard Professor Gyampo conclude by suggesting that, we probably must relook our constitution, and Matipe was also talk about the fact that we also need to relook our democracy. I think it's become evidently clear that a lot of people have said that there's a major deficiency in the kind of democracy we run. And Mr. Matipe has referred to the former president of blessed memory, who took the bold initiative of at least trying to review the constitution. Ever since that, we've not seen much. A lot of them in opposition talk about the unfettered powers of the president, why we need to review the constitution. They come into power and enjoy everything about the powers of the president and do nothing about it. I'll start with you, Mr. Segbefia, and I'm sure you also have difficulties with the kind of democracy we run. Who is going to start this adult conversation? Oh, let's do it. Who will start it?
I don't think that it has been a desire not to do it. The question is, how do people see it being done? So you have the constitutional review, which has been taking place. We even went as far as a white paper. And people took matters to court.
Not white paper, the setting up of a constitutional review implementation committee.
Yes. Yeah. But that's what I'm saying, that the white paper came.
It's move on from the white paper.
And then we went to the implementation committee, and then elections came. And when the elections came, then we had a stagnation, more or less. And that is because of the way the leadership see it. I stand to be corrected, but the view that I've heard from President Nana Addo is that he does not believe in wholesale constitutional change. Some of us believe that we must change as much as possible in the constitution that stemmed from the constitutional review. He is not an advocate of that, and he believes you do it in piecemeal, in terms of pick one, this thing, maybe 3 years down the line, 5 years down the line, you do another one, that sort of thing. For me, the question is about how you implement. And there are also different means of implementing. So some you can do by parliamentary powers. Some you have to go for a referendum to actually change. Now, as a people, we have to make up our mind, where are we and what do we want to do in terms of the change. But as for the change, I think we are all agreed, even as far back as Professor Mills, or President Mills, that it had to be done. Why are we asking questions about it now? Because it has come to the fore because of the things that are happening now, which many of my colleagues have spoken about. This unfettered behavior, I don't have to listen to anybody, it's my time, it's up type behavior. So increasingly, anybody you speak to will be telling you, we need constitutional review. We need it now. We have to look at it. And also, this whole issue, there are so many things in it. He's talking of a parliamentary system. Do we have to change this issue about how MPs are picked to be ministers or not? There's so many areas in that constitution which is not fit for purpose at the moment. So I'm clear in my mind. Constitutional review, we must have.
Right.
And the work has been done. Don't let us go and spend time doing another whole review. At best, get some experts in, let them spend 4 weeks maximum, go through what is there in light of what is happening, and tinker with it. Professor Fiajo is alive. He knows it inside out. He can help. And then we just go to the Ghanaian people and say to them, look, these ones we can deal with. Because you see, if you touch one, in a lot of the cases, it affects others.
Right.
So you must touch all that are linked.
Right.
You have to know which ones are linked and then touch it.
Right. We've got to move on, but just briefly.
Sorry.
Sorry.
I completely agree with His Excellency the President that we must approach this process carefully and piecemeal, because this conversation has been going on for years. Indeed, the substantive conversation which led to Professor Mills establishing the review committee started in Kufuor's era, when Joe Garte was, Honorable Joe Garte was Attorney General, and then GTZ helps the government to redefine IOCO. Because the original attempt was to try and merge all the anti-corruption institutions and clarify Shiraji's mandate so that we could better fight corruption. So it started well before. Now, throwing this document, which has served us so well for 30 years, away in its entirety.
It served us so well.
Please, I will explain this so well.
Okay.
This is
We don't have much time, so let's
of,
make it.
of
Yeah.
most stability and growth that we've had continuously. And this is the time when we've actually seen parties rotate, leadership rotate in this government without chopping of heads. We had the military, we had uncertainty, we had changes from independence that were unpredictable. This time, we've had parties go in and out.
And that's the doing of the document?
But it's a lived experience. Okay. A constitution is a lived experience. No election has been held outside this constitution. No government has been formed outside this constitution. So the 30 years, we've had this as a framework. But there are key issues that we must deal with. First of all, for me, the things we haven't even lived yet, and we're about to try. Chapter 5 on our fundamental human rights and freedoms, which we are enjoying now in this country. The ability to speak, to congregate, to associate, to assemble, to engage, to participate. It's all under there. The question is, how constructively do we engage and participate? Is it extremist? Even that, the constitutions allow extremism to the extent that you are still within the law. Then you have chapter 6, the directive principles of state policy. Fantastic aspirations, which the Supreme Court of this country has deemed are justiciable. In other words, you can go to court to enforce those aspirations. Chapter 7 on representation of the people. We have issues with Article 55 under that chapter about whether or not political parties can actually participate effectively in forming opinion at district level and seeking to lead at district level. Beyond that, Article 41, which is under chapter 6, it's one of my favorites in this constitution. If we were, as citizens of this country, upholding Article 41, we perhaps will not be having this conversation. And if you give me 2 minutes, I'll read rapidly through it.
2 minutes is a lot of time.
Oh, shouldn't I, Martin?
It's a lot of time. We need to move on.
To promote the prestige of Ghana, uphold and defend this constitution, foster national unity, live in harmony, respect the rights, freedom, legitimate interests of others, refrain from doing acts detrimental to the welfare of other persons, work conscientiously in lawfully chosen occupation, protect and preserve public property, and expose and combat misuse and waste of public funds and property, contribute to the well-being of the community where that citizen lives, defend Ghana and render national service when necessary, cooperate with lawful agencies in the maintenance of law and order, declare income honestly to the appropriate and lawful agency and satisfy all tax obligations, and protect and safeguard the environment. If we, in all conscience and integrity as Ghanaians, were upholding Article 41, perhaps we will be giving this constitution a bigger chance. Martin. Of course, Article 71 is also a problem. Public sector remuneration, where we have that set of things. And it's something that the review processes have flagged.
Right. Martin, let me hear you.
Yeah, so, Mr. Asare, I am of the view, I go with Senior Segbe Fia that, look, we need a wholesale review. The president's view, which Senior Boabi supports, that do it piecemeal. We don't have time. I don't subscribe to it at all. We've lost so much time. Just like you've seen how the president has conducted himself 8 years, we haven't achieved any constitutional review. Remember, the closest was the election of the MMDCs. Right. And when he saw that he had lost, that he wanted it on partisan lines, and the people of Ghana say non-partisan, then he scrapped it, right? So you see how much we've lost, because that's his philosophy. Do it piecemeal. In the process, he has enjoyed and is gone. No, let's do a holistic one. And especially, we've talked about making sure that MPs are not made ministers. Yes, that apart. One other thing, and you see Senior mentioned it, the integrity deficit. We are so bad. Morally bankrupt. The integrity deficit is killing us. So for me, one of the main things we'll be looking at is 286. All right? The matter of 284 clause 6. The matter of the assets. When ministers come into office and they are leaving, the audit of their assets is very important. Right now, as I sit here, look, people have shown me information. You see a minister with 4 houses in cantonment, airport, Yeah, I'm going to take on that matter very soon.
Yeah,
then you're like, how much is your income? How much is your income? And so because we are so morally bankrupt, people just come in and amass so much wealth. Look at it, and even the matter of, so 286 clause 4, any property or assets acquired by a public officer after the initial declaration required by clause 1 of this article, and which is not reasonably attributable to income, gift, loan, inheritance, or any other reasonable source, shall be deemed to have been acquired in contravention of this constitution. That is it.
What if it is attributable to gift?
Yeah, so if, then let's show. But right now, all the ministers, they come, including the president, then they go. There's no audit, all right, at the time they are exiting. So we're saying that let's improve it in such a way that when you are leaving, you appear before Shraj and justify your assets. You see the Jage Commission, when Kwame Nkrumah left. Yes, when the military people came, they appointed the Jage Commission. People came, and you know what? Our history shows that Ghanaians love it the most when you ask them to bring evidence anonymously. We like the anonymous system. So midnight or dawn, then they'll come and leave evidence at the doorstep of the commission. Then you can open the envelope. That's how lawyer Appiah, the former special prosecutor, that's how he was this in court and then eventually convicted. People brought evidence of his bank accounts when he was doing case for Mr. Jabba, okay, and the Kohus Motors and all that. People brought evidence anonymously. So when you say that, that's one of the things, because right now they are making money left, right, center. Left, right, center. Go and see huge buildings, cantonments, airports. People have become very rich. Ministers, rich. Some of the MPs too. They are going free. Nobody's going to check them. The OSP is inundated, and you see the president is not interested in resourcing the OSP, starving the OSP so that the OSP has no teeth to bite. OSP has only 10 officers. 10 officers. The investigators are just 3, and Ghanaians are quiet. You think how are we going to fight corruption? We are fostering corruption, fostering it, and festering it. That's our system. So this constitution there, we need a real overhaul.
Wholesale, right. Dr. Jampo, let me hear you.
Well, thank you very much. I'm very passionate about the state of our constitution review process because I played a key role in originating the whole idea. In 2006, I remember when I used to coordinate the Ghana Political Parties program, we commissioned a study led by a Zimbabwean political scientist, Professor Reginald Austin, and then a Ghanaian law professor, Professor Kumado. I was their research assistant to undertake an audit of the gaps in Ghana's democracy. That study culminated in a certain report, which was later worked on or improved upon by bringing together another set of scholars, Professor Yao Chumesi, Professor Kwame Nahoy, and Dr. Ahaji, and I was a research assistant. We taught the whole nation to audit the gaps in Ghana's democracy and produced a document we called the Democracy Consolidation Strategy Paper. Now, that document identified so many gaps in Ghana's democracy and Ghana's governance process and make recommendations for reform. One key recommendation that was made was that the 1992 Constitution must be reviewed. And the argument was that even though the Constitution has served us well, it nevertheless contained provisions that hinder the maturation of our democratization process. And so the Constitution must be reviewed. Now, the document also prescribed the format or the form or the ways and means through which we could use to review the Constitution, and the setting up of the Constitution Review Commission and the caliber of people who must be represented or must function on that review commission. That members of the commission, there should be bipartisan approach. The MPP was represented by no mean a person, Akintin Appiah Menka. And scholars were there, civil society representatives, people from all the political parties were represented on that.
Electoral commissioner.
Yes.
My former boss, Jean Mensa, because we spearheaded, we were financing the Ghana Political Parties program. And so the Jean Mensa was also represented, on that commission. And you know what they did? They did a nationwide public consultation, on the provisions that we had found to be problematic. They subjected all the provisions, to review nationwide public consultations for Ghanaians to speak their voices or make their views known about them. Extensive process. Okay, before I continue on that tangent, when we got done with that democracy consolidation strategy paper, I remember Professor Ahoy, in 2008, President Mills was elected. And so Professor Ahoy sent the idea to Professor Mills that, look, the Ghana political parties, the leadership of the political parties, and then other experts have been able to agree on the idea that there should be a review of the constitution. And so we are selling this idea to you. Professor Mills said, well, if the political parties and their leadership themselves, and so if they've agreed that the constitution must be reviewed, then I'm going to kickstart the process. And so the idea of constitution review wasn't something that was whimsical or somebody just got up and said, I'm going to do it. Right. It came as a result of broader and extensive work and consultation. Right. And the work of the Constitution Review Commission itself sort of even duplicated what we had done at the IEA, because they subjected all the recommendations that had been encapsulated in the Democracy Consolidation Strategy paper to another round of public consultation, and Ghanaians confirmed and added more, okay, to the call and to the various provisions that, in their view, had to be reviewed. Yes. And this culminated in a very fat document, voluminous almost 500-page document, right, for constitution review to take place. Right. And you see, what hurts me, you see, it is not, it doesn't lie in the mouth of one person to say that, as for me, I don't like it, when the process itself has benefited from extensive nationwide public consultation. Right. People were consulted, including the president. Right. The sitting president, I know for a fact that he was even consulted. So all Ghanaians who were... document. Yeah, it's a people's document. Right. Okay, and so to generate such people's document and to have a regime that will say that as for me, because I didn't originate it, I'm not going to make use of it, I mean, smacks of a certain irresponsiveness on the part of that regime. No. I am very. I'm afraid we've got. We spent a lot of money, undergoing this process. We spent a huge sums of money. And I've always argued that somebody one day should be able to take somebody on in this administration for causing a severe financial loss to the state, for abandoning that document and abandoning that process that we spent so much, money on. And please don't be shaking your head, right? Because I'm afraid we have that penchant of always starting anew, and that plague of policy discontinuity is always undermining our development. We are always starting anew. NDC starts something, MPP comes, they throw it away. MPP starts something, NDC comes, they throw it away. You started a free SHS. As you sit here, you are not sure whether another regime would come and continue. Are we going to develop as a nation?
We've got to move on. But wasn't the former administration, your administration, that issued a white paper on it?
Yes, it was instigated by President Mills.
Yes.
It was the NDC. You see, it was the NDC that it was Professor Mills that kickstarted the process, and the process was ongoing until someone took it to court. And then in 2016, we got into the election atmosphere, election favor.
By that time, we even implemented the implementation committee.
The implementation committee had been set up. Yes. But in 2016, because of the election, the process got suspended. And so we're expecting that, given that it had benefited from extensive nationwide public consultation, a new regime will just follow through. And now you are putting it down.
We've got to move on. I'm afraid.
Let's engage effectively on
briefly,
briefly.
Under a minute,
please.
It's
not been abandoned. And it is not the president
for 7 years. No, if it's not been abandoned, please, yeah.
There is an ideological approach to this.
I'm afraid my producers are telling me we've got to move on with this.
The question of whether you do constitutional reform wholesale with 94 articles, proposals to change the existing constitution, or you do it piecemeal, gradually. And there are two schools of thought: the gradual process and the throwaway and
No, but
do
how
the
can
entire
there,
process.
how can there be two
The
processes?
gradual.
No,
but that's
how
it.
can there be?
All right, gentlemen.
During the consultation
All right, gentlemen,
process,
we had a
why
problem
didn't this
with
come
the
up?
last
You
one
see,
where
my
we couldn't-
view
All
is
right,
that
so
you
your
see-
microphones are muted.
Oh no. Can I make
Your
this
microphones
point?
are muted, gentlemen.
Oh,
We've got to move on.
No, can I make this small point?
We've got to
You see,
move on.
Can I make
I'm
this
afraid,
small
I'm
point?
afraid we've got to move on.
I have a
I think
small
we
point.
need to make this.
is
We need to bring back this discussion.
My friend,
Topic that
don't
deal with
don't
as a
don't
side.
gag your
True,
teacher.
yes.
Don't gag your teacher. Don't gag your teacher.
If we go this time,
Okay, please
don't gag
give
the teacher.
Professor Jampo just 50 seconds
Yes,
on
yes.
this.
Give me. Don't. You can't gag your teacher like that. Please take note of this. You see, the people who those in power now, at the time the constitution was being reviewed and they were consulted, they favored the review. But you see, when they got into power and they realized how sweet power is and how power tends to make a common individual a political king corn, they now are enjoying power, and so now they do not want their powers to be fettered. And I'm saying that we cannot leave some of these important decisions to the whims and caprices of those in power
Right.
or those in opposition.
Right.